on February 27th, Wednesday, 6 p.m. Everybody welcome. We have a full house, which is nice. No, we've had full houses before, but not for a while. So I don't know. Maybe everybody knew there was pizza on the menu. Who knows? Who knows? So you have the agenda in front of you, and I would like to ask if are any public comments. No, there are no public comments, and I would like for you to review the summary of actions for the meeting of January 23rd, and I will entertain a motion.
Adopt as presented.
Okay, I have a motion from
Second.
Mark to adopt, and who's second?
Second.
Okay, JP second. So, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please notify by stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Abstentions? We have one abstention, and because he wasn't here, the City of Clayton, and the motion has passed. Thank you. We've got a few new members, and so what I'd like to do is take a very quick session here to have ourselves introduced so that we all know each other. And I will start, I guess I'll start with Patricia.
I'm Patricia Bristow, and I live in Byron, and I represent the unincorporated areas in Contra Costa County. And I've been on here for 4 years now.
Bradley.
Hello, my name's Brad Powells. I am here from the city of Hercules, and I've been with the group here since December.
I'm Kent Moriarty from the city of Pinole, and Bradley and I were the new guys at the meeting, the last one we were both at.
I'm Chadwick Weiler, City of Pleasant Hill, and I think next month will be 2 years for me.
Good evening. I'm Mark Roberts, representing the city of Orinda. I've really enjoyed this for the past 6 years, but sadly this will be my last meeting. I am the incoming district governor for my Rotary district, which is 72 clubs from San Ramon up to close to the Oregon border to the lovely town of Weed. So I'm going to be extremely busy visiting clubs and working on district projects starting in the near future, so getting to Wednesday evening meetings is just not going to work. But I've thoroughly enjoyed this. It's been a pleasure working with my fellow committee members. I also want to thank the members of the staff, Matt and Martin and Randy, and of course Fifi. You guys are amazing, and I really appreciate the work that you do to benefit all the citizens of Contra Costa County. Thank you very much.
Mike Dupre, City of Oakley.
I can't be any more brief than that.
Say it quicker.
I'm Larry Wyrick, and I represent Pittsburgh. I've been here, I think, since 2004, but I'm not real sure. It's been a long time. My term is up, by the way, as of the January 31st, but yeah, nobody told me not to be here, so I'm here.
And you're staying. Okay. My name is Yolanda Vega. I chair the committee. I've been part of this committee, I think, since 2006, I think. And I've been chair twice, which was a very cruel joke that some of you played on me when I was absent. And so be warned, you new guys, be warned. And I represent the city of Lafayette.
Lawrence Hanson, City of Brentwood. It's my first meeting, was just sworn in a few minutes ago. Nice to be here.
Guess we get to haze him now. Hi, JP McDermott, representing the beautiful town of Danville.
I'm Ken Strongman, representing Walnut Creek, and I've been here since probably July last year.
Larry Rosenberg from the town of Moraga. I've been on the committee for a little over a year, and the town of Moraga may grow up someday and become a city, like some of you folks.
I'm Bruce Yao with the City of El Cerrito, and I'm going on my second year.
And I'm Ed Miller from Clayton. Glad to be joining you for the first time this evening. I'm a database analyst at a local regional insurance carrier, also assistant scoutmaster and active in youth soccer. So, but I think the most important qualification is, like many of you, I've had a commute into the city. I've had commutes over to the peninsula. I currently enjoy a commute just down Ignacio Valley, which was not enjoyable today, but I've got a lot of experience on various transit systems here, so hopefully that will come to bear.
Great. Well, thank you very much and welcome, and congratulations to the new members who were just sworn in prior to our meeting. It's great. Just a reminder, please put your cell phones on silent. And we welcome everyone's opinion. We ask that when you do give us your opinion or asking a question, that we do that one person at a time. Everybody will have an opportunity to speak. And when you're not speaking, if you will turn your microphone off. So we've got a change in our agenda. The city of Pleasant Hill, who's not coming? The city of Moraga will not be able to attend. Matt will let us know.
Yeah, we should probably just wait until that item, and I'll go over kind of the options with you. Thank you.
So next on the agenda is, will you please check your attendance log and ensure that it's accurate? Any comments, please direct them to Fifi. Okay, hearing none.
Fifi, there is an error with mine. I was absent last time.
Okay, any other?
Also, while you're looking at that page in the vacancies, it lists Pinole as vacant. I know I missed one meeting, but don't kick me out.
See what happens when you're not here? It's a tough crowd. Any other comments? No? Okay, great. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have a major discussion item on the Fair Political Practice Commission regarding Form 700, important for everyone sitting on this committee. And so, staff member.
Good evening, Citizens Advisory Committee Chair and committee members. I'm Terry Ann Grover, and I'm the clerk of the board here. And I oversee the Form 700 filing process for the agency. Form 700s are mandated by the Fair Political Practices Commission and the Political Reform Act, which requires all state, local, and special districts to adopt a conflict of interest code. This code establishes the rules for reporting personal assets and make or participate in the making of any decisions that affect the authority. As a Citizens Advisory Committee member, you regularly participate in governmental decisions by making recommendations to the board that are regularly adopted. The CAC provides perspective, participation, and involvement in authority, policy development, and implementation, such as with the growth management checklist and compliance. In 2014, we adopted Ordinance 1401, which basically stated that all of our committees had to file Form 700s. Form 700s are filed within 30 days of assuming office annually on April 1st. This year it happens to be April 2nd due to Cesar Chavez Day being recognized on April 1st. And then also, when you leave office within 30 days, you need to file. There are late penalties that can be assessed. They're pretty minimal, but if someone doesn't file, it can be referred to the FPPC. In January of 2017, we implemented an electronic filing system through NetFile. I believe majority of all of our members are now filing electronically. The beauty of the system is that it saves your information. So when you file the next time, it's all saved in there, and you just need to go in and basically update anything that may have changed in that prior 12 months. When you do file, it does reflect either the prior 12 months, like when you're assuming you're leaving, or it reflects the prior calendar year for the annual. So the annual statement was sent out, annual notification statement was sent out on February 6th, and it's set to send out reminders every 3 weeks. And that's pretty much all I have on that. Does anyone have any questions before I move on to the other 2 training requirements?
I don't believe I got a notification. Is that
So it goes to whatever email your original application has on it. So I can check. I'll make sure that you.
And second question, I assume for April 1st is the deadline. Can we file today if I went home and actually dug it out and did it?
Yes, I accept them anytime.
Okay.
Any other questions related to the Form 700 filing?
Yeah, I do have a question. I didn't receive anything, any notifications. Does that mean I'm okay?
No.
Well, you don't,
I can check for you as well.
you don't have to. That's okay.
You got it?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
But,
or I'll still check.
okay, we check it out. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Just one question, Terry. For those, the 2 of us that are new, we're been requested now. So will this serve for the April 1st, or are we going to have another one coming right up on us?
It will serve its purpose. You will not have to file again until next April.
Okay, thank you.
So Terry, I did not receive a notification either, and I'm wondering if the email address you have for me is from Bart, and if that is, that's no longer a valid email.
Okay, I'll check that as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. When you do log in, you do have to use the email that it was sent to. If you try to log in with a different email, then it will not work. So I will definitely check the 3 individuals and make sure that you get a notification.
I did not get the information either, perhaps because I'm new. Lawrence Hanson, right here. Yeah. If you can check that.
I don't know. I know yours was, I don't know if yours was, actually, I think it was sent about a week ago. So I'll check yours as well.
Okay, thank you.
It comes from NetFile, but I believe I don't know the actual, they generate them and send them out. So I think it comes from, I don't know. You might want to look up, it's either going to come from NetFile or CCTA. Oh, okay. Was it NetFile? Okay, yeah. Yeah, they actually send out all the notices, but the information that's in the system is where they send it, so. Okay. All right. So I will get back to the 3 members and let you know about your notification. Okay. So another requirement is the ethics training, which is mandated by Assembly Bill 1234. And the ethics training is again required as per Government Code Section 53234, and it requires ethics training basically within 1 year of assuming office and then every 2 years thereafter. And it mandates 2 hours of training in general ethics principles and ethics law relevant to your role as a public servant. And the training focuses on establishing and maintaining public trust, and that the activities of the representative of the authority are done with integrity, economy, fiscal prudence, and are done in manners that retain and inspire the trust and confidence of the people that the authority serves. Newly appointed members will receive this training within 1 year of assuming office. The Fair Political Practice Commission does offer a free online training. It does print on the certification how long you spent in the training, and you do need to make sure that you're in there for 2 full hours. I have heard that the training you can finish it a lot earlier, but you need to kind of stay in the system and make sure that it prints the 2 hours out. You want to make sure that you use the local officials training, the FPPC which is the Fair Political Practices Commission, does offer a state and a local training, and the state training does not satisfy the requirement. So make sure that you use the correct one. Upon completion, a certification is provided, which you will sign and then send over to Fifi. She does not need to have an original copy, so you can just, put your signature on it and then scan it over to her. And this does apply only to local officials who wish to receive compensation, and that's for travel, parking, mileage. If you do not wish to receive compensation, you don't have to take the training. Are there any questions regarding that? Okay, and the third and newer requirement is sexual harassment prevention training. Assembly Bill 1661 went into effect last year, which changed Assembly Bill 1825, which mandated all local agency officials to receive training and within 6 months of hire and every 2 years after, or 6 months of your assuming office date. And this, again, is if the local agency provides any type of compensation or stipend or travel reimbursement to the official. The law that passed basically extended the requirement to additionally require local agency officials, as defined as any member of a local agency legislative body and any local agency official, to receive the training and education, once again, if they receive reimbursement. This information shall include information and practical guidance regarding the federal and state statutory provisions concerning the prohibition against and prevention of correction of sexual harassment and the remedies available to victims of sexual harassment in employment. It also provides practical examples aimed at instructing the local agency officials in the prevention of sexual harassment, discrimination, and retaliation, and shall be presented by trainers or educators with knowledge and expertise in the prevention of sexual harassment. So again, this is only required if you wish to receive compensation, and again, this is something that you would provide to Fifi. If you've previously had this training as well as the ethics training through another agency or through your employer, you can provide that certification. You don't have to retake it as long as it's still valid. If you do need to have the training, we can get you the training through our HR consultant. They utilize Keenan Safe Personnel Training, and it's an online 2-hour training as well as the ethics training. Do you have any questions on this? Nope. All right. Well, thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much for this. And if any of us do think of questions after, we can direct them to Phoebe. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the review of the City of Antioch's calendar year's management program compliance checklist. And our representatives are here. Welcome and good evening.
Good evening. My name is John Blank. I'm the Director of Public Works for the City of Antioch.
I'm Alexis Morris, Planning Manager for the City of Antioch. And I don't think we have a presentation prepared. We're happy to answer any questions that you have. We didn't really have a preamble, unless you want us to come up with one real quick. We're happy to answer any questions that you have.
So, Alexis, if you wouldn't mind giving us a summary and highlighting the year for the checklist.
Sure.
Do you typically just go, this is like both our first times doing the Measure J. I'm new to Antioch, and I think this is Alexis's first time as well. And we went to council for approval of the checklist just recently, a couple weeks ago. And do you just usually go down the action plans, development mitigation, and just go through it, or what's your pleasure?
So you two are in good luck because many of us are new also.
Okay.
We lucked out. So there's no need for anybody to get into stress. Usually what we do is we review the compliance checklist. If there are any questions regarding any of the attachments that you've provided, we will ask you to give us more detail. We like to hear you toot your horn and say, oh, look what we did, which we said we would do, and not only did we do it, we really did a great job.
Okay.
So we like hearing that. We also would like to hear about any challenges that you're seeing down the road, and that any directions that you feel you're going toward.
Okay.
And other than that, yeah.
Okay. So right now with primarily we're using Measure J funds for street maintenance programs, and we do have some match in later years for specific projects. So the projects that we had slated this year, we actually funded with and tried to use up all our RMRA money. And so this spring, what's exciting for us is we have about $4 million in Measure J projects that are gearing out and ready to go. And quite a bit of it is base repair, micro seal, and ADA curb ramps. And it's just basically next year's project is basically just focusing on catching up on street maintenance, road maintenance. And we're also using some Measure J to catch up on some street light issues, brighter street lights over crosswalks, a lot of pedestrian safety issues, and a lot of the funding for Measure J is going to be used for future years for match. It's program for which is L Street reconstruction and a federal overlay, I believe, that we might have coming up in a couple of years. So right now, we're going through a CIP, our 5-year CIP process and our budget process. We have a 2-year budget, and I'm going through the CIP to reprogram the Measure J to make sure it's focused on the street maintenance and future match. And so it's pretty exciting to be able to get about $4 million worth of projects out early this summer or even sooner. So for the checklist, or for tooting our horn, we haven't fully used all the Measure J. As I said, we were spending the RMRA, a couple $1 million in RMRA money prior to the elections, prior to the time that there was a lot of desire to spend that. Does anybody have any questions or anything that we're doing with the Measure J for this next year, or is it typical that's focused on the road projects?
Or questions that have been done in the reporting year of 2016, 2017?
So in the past, 2016, 2017, I think we spent the Measure J on a lot of concrete work and curb ramp projects. So in the past years, again, micro seals in the street maintenance program. We didn't have anything last year for Measure J other than the concrete. A lot of ADA curb ramps. I think there was about $1.8 million or so in curb ramp projects that we did so that we could prepare for future overlays and slurry seals and so forth. With a lot of those projects, the environmental is simple, the checklist fairly simple. I'm not sure exactly what else to comment or provide. If you could help me out on possibly what you'd like to know about the expenditures.
Chad?
Oh, I'm not going to ask about your expenditures. We kind of know what they're supposed to be spent on, but with the change in the legislature, I was going to ask you about your regional housing needs assessment, and are you able to meet that? And how is the new state legislation going to affect that? I know we have one city already being sued by the governor for not being able to meet that. Where are you guys at?
Currently, we're in the reporting year. It doesn't really matter. I guess we're fine, like most people, and above mod, and it's still very low that we're not meeting, like a lot of people. We do have some units, but our production has really not ramped up still in Antioch since the recession. We have a lot of entitlements. We have a lot of things under construction right now, grading and not even vertical yet.
What's your rate of growth out there now for population?
For population, I don't know. Our population's increased fairly steadily in the past 10 years, incrementally. So we're at 114,000 approximately right now. Yeah, about that, but I don't know exactly. So we're not being sued over our RHNA, but like most people, we're not meeting the low, very low, and low. We have affordable housing projects coming forward to be entitled, which would help us greatly, but they have to be approved. They're not approved yet.
Is there any way that you guys are looking at to control or not control, to put caps on fixed income rent increases like the senior housing, especially the senior housing?
Yeah, so our council hasn't directed us and hasn't considered rent stabilization yet. I believe that's a big part of the CASA package. I'm not sure if you probably have heard of the CASA goals moving forward. That's a big goal of CASA, but we don't have currently a rent stabilization program.
You know what CASA is. That's wonderful.
I can't tell you everything that's in it, but I do know of it.
So, reviewing the housing element, it looks like there was senior housing, 84 units in 2016, which is great. Good job. No problem with the above mod, like you said, but there's several hundred units outstanding for everything else. What's the city's outlook? Is there even entitlements for that, taking advantage of maybe BART to Antioch?
I'm sorry, take advantage of what?
Taking advantage of BART to Antioch. I know that BART is trying to develop fast and furiously around several of their stations. Have they indicated anything that?
Not ours. They don't own the land around our BART station. The land that they own is where the parking and all that is. So we have a specific plan that we adopted in 2009 with an EIR that allows mixed use, high density all along around our BART station. The property owner that owns all the land around the BART station has not moved forward or pursued that. So we've done and they paid for that specific plan as well, so they participated. So we have up to 45 units an acre, mixed use, office, retail, planned and CEQA done, but someone would have to move it forward.
So that owner that still owns that land around the station indicated a desire to do the development. Is it just a matter of following through, or is it probably going to have to change hands? Do you guys know? Or
if they wanted to move it forward, they would just need to submit a development application to the city. They'd have to do a project-specific CEQA document, most likely. The area that the BART station located in is highly constrained from railroad tracks, creeks, wetlands. There's some soil contamination. It's not a very turnkey location to develop for anybody. So there are expenses to a lot of roadway. All the utilities have to be extended. It's an undeveloped part of our city, believe it or not, even though it's basically in the middle of the city. So there's challenges and there's economics that go along with that. So I'm sure they're considering their options and what they can and can't afford to move forward with, but they haven't come to the city with a development application. That's what it would take.
They're looking at the funding that may be necessary for a VR extension, which is like a $20 million endeavor. I have been talking to them about different state programs like the HUD, affordable housing grants and so forth. They're going to look into them as of 2 weeks ago, last week when I talked to their representative, and may look at that. I just don't see them moving right now in developing that area. I also talked to the director of BART yesterday, and he doesn't have any direct plans to do any type of development or so forth. What's on their radar screen for the next 2 or 3 years is just expanding the parking lot and adding 850 spaces because the station is overly successful and they anticipated the parking. Mm-hmm. So they don't intend to build any affordable housing anytime in the future. And they plan to partner with us if they do. Yes.
I have an observation that was observed this morning. I was out visiting a client there very close to the new BART station on Hillcrest, and they live on Yellowstone. And Yellowstone and Yosemite apparently are hosting a number of people parking there and walking down to the station. And I think that's eventually going, and maybe not eventually, but maybe it already is a problem for the residents there. And I wondered if you had contemplated a permit system. I know that's what we did in Pittsburgh when our station opened a long time ago now. But that's what was happening. The parking lot was filling up, and people parked wherever they could find a place to park, which was causing, congestion in the residential area. And once we were issued permits, then that problem dwindled, abated quite a bit. And this may be a measure that Antioch could pursue.
So we had considered permit parking, and instead of going that route, I think we partnered with BART to get the parking. They're going out to bid in just a few months, and to get it constructed by 2020 to get the parking lot open in just a year and a half, 2 years. Rather than creating a new system to administer a new system for parking. And I think that right now we've tabled that concept.
Hopefully 850 parking places will alleviate the problem.
They believe so. We'll see. They were a little bit off on their first projections. So the 1,700 spaces was to be needed by 2030, and so 2021 is probably about right.
Yeah, I think that I think we can acknowledge that the new BART station has really been a success.
So along with that, we have intersection improvements, and they're going to improve the BART station access to prevent stacking up of vehicles and improve movements of buses. And the intersection improvements will alleviate the bicycle issues where vehicles are sometimes, there's a lot more volume going onto the freeway, the westbound ramp. So we're going to add dual access, dual lanes to the westbound ramp. There's about twice as many trips to access the freeway than they actually access the BART station in the AM peak. So that will greatly help the area as well.
Ed Miller from Clayton. If I might ask, I'm not aware of everything that you've been doing, but is it possible in that particular circumstance, since you know you're just bridging to a certain amount of time, to minimally develop an area that's underutilized nearby and use some of the funds to set up a bus a shuttle that would go back and forth to an alternate parking area, maybe within a mile or two away, but something that's underutilized at the moment.
So all the options, there's many options that have been discussed, including that one, as well as using it at certain locations. And of course, BART has to operate that. It's not a city operation, and they chose not to do that, and they chose to focus on expanding the parking lot. But we've been at the table, we've discussed with them, but it's their funding and monies that have to operate those. And there was something along the lines of that they would be needed for the early morning peak, and then as people came back, the buses, the amount of vehicles that you'd have to have the drop-offs would it'd be almost more feasible to use Uber to get back to your car than to have a busing system and come back to your car because of the spread in time frame of passengers getting off the train.
Okay, understandable. And then one follow-on question, not to that particular subject, but looking at the things that you have done, and I got that you said in 2017 it was mostly just concrete work, but the one thing that sort of stood out here was it looked like there was a bit of a ramp up. Maintenance is fine, but I was also looking for things that were capacity enhancing. And the one thing that stood out in my mind was it looked like you were ramping up between these 2 years on the traffic signal interconnects and video. And I just wondered, did any of that continue into 2017, or is it any of that planned for 2018? And what sort of improvements did you observe from the signal interconnects that you did do?
So we're repairing, we found some damage, and we have Contra Costa County does our signal maintenance, and they found some damaged areas, and they're still working on repairing them. So we've been putting money into each of the signals and going through and troubleshooting, and we haven't been able to get our interconnect completely up and running. We have the computer system in place, we have the software, we have the training. We just have a couple broken lines on one of the major corridors, and I'm looking forward to getting that done real soon. But we are still paying the bills to try to get that completed, and then we'll do our corridor study and try to time it so that we have a better flow of traffic through there. I think that's the Lone Tree corridor, I think. Yeah.
I have a question on a couple of things, and I'll try to space them out. But I'll put on my veterans hat. Are you guys getting money for, a Veterans Navigation Center?
I'm not familiar with that term. I'm not sure what it would be.
It's brand new, so it's coming, I think. The other question is that Brentwood's talking about moving their urban limit line out. And I understand there is an open space buffer area there. Are you guys going to do anything to protect that?
Our urban limit line is not going to change. It's just been re-upped and extended through a voter initiative that was adopted by our city council last year. So our urban limit line is where it is today, and it will be, I can't remember the new expiration. Well, I think it's in perpetuity now because of the voter initiative. There is unincorporated area between Brentwood and Antioch, commonly known as the Genocchio parcel. It's in our sphere of influence, but we have no plans in the immediate future to change that.
Well, I know there's a push on by developers to extend that urban limit line in Brentwood. The other question I have is for your housing projects and any of the new projects going on. Are they do they have project labor agreements, and are they being sustainably built?
So many of them do have project labor agreements. We have one that I'm aware of that does not, a condominium project near BART, actually. All the other ones that I'm aware of that are under construction today do have project labor agreements. It's not something the city becomes a party to. It's just something I hear through the applicants mention it or tell the council. Usually they're asked at a hearing. Sustainably, everyone has to meet the new Title 24 building codes, which are very, very green and very strict. All these houses that have been approved in the last 4 to 5 years are just now the models are under construction, so they'll all be under that new building code.
Yeah, it's difficult to keep the cost down so that you can get affordable housing and still keep it sustainably built. And I know that labor is shifting from government contracts and work to urban or residential buildings. So that's why I asked those questions. I know that there are a lot of community benefit agreements that can be done, and there are project labor agreements. And of course, you guys don't control it, but you can require, I suppose, the prevailing wage.
So many of the developers are requesting skip funding, and with skip funding, it's much easier to hire union labor. And so a lot of the skip funded projects are being done with union.
What did you call that? What?
Skip.
Skip funding?
It's the acronym is for to use tax roll assessments to pay fees and so forth, and for improvements. So it's a state program that the cities signed on to, many cities sign on to. And so we have a couple projects that will be using the union labor. Now, the city recently did the first project labor agreement for the brackish water desalinization plant. That was approved by council a few weeks ago. So that's our first project labor agreement in quite some time.
And so I'm assuming that that assessment runs for 15, 20 years, similar to like when they're paying for the new schools and roads?
Excuse me?
It's an assessment for the skip funding, it looks like. I just pulled this up real quick. How long do those assessments last?
I think they're about 20 years. I think they are 20 years. But in order to get that funding, you have to do prevailing wage, you have to do reporting, and it's easier for them to hire union contractors for the reporting because they don't have to go to DIR and do as much work. And it's safer for us because we're obligated to make sure that they follow the prevailing wage laws, and to have a private developer, us watch over a private developer for certified payroll and to ensure that that's being done properly. It's easier for them to use union labor, and that's what they're doing. A lot of folks are doing that. So
these are even for residential developments too, not just
for residential, yes.
So how many jobs is that desalinization plant going to create?
It's a $63 million project. If you use the state or the calculation, I haven't done the calculation as of yet. I don't have any idea right now, but you can get an idea for about $50 million, $55 million construction price of how many jobs that might create. It's a lot of pipeline work and a lot in building work and in the plant works. So it can be done primarily with the union trades. Not a lot, some specialized work, but most of it's covered by trades. And it does have helmets for hard hats, and the PLA is the standard one that's been going through the region. That's been negotiated by the trades.
You thought this was all going to be on Measure J stuff, huh?
I'm happy to answer any questions because we're doing a lot of great things, and I'd be happy. I've only been in Antioch for about 10 months, and so I've learned quite a bit about the city, and it's been great.
Well, I'm going to do the thing that I've been doing for about a year now and ask you about additional dwelling units. I know that the very low and low income is hard to hit, and no one actively wants to build that, especially developers. The city of Pleasant Hill, I was actually at a planning commission meeting last night reviewing a development proposal for 51 units. 10 ADUs were included. 100 Mayhew over here, I think it's 48 units, 9 ADUs are included. The developers have kind of caught on. It's an easier sell to the city, to the planning commission. 20% low income target, so it helps with the RHNA. Even there is one, it costs a lot of consternation. A historic parcel, it's going to be like 18 new units, and they're going to have, I think, 3 of them will be also in-law units. Those count for the state targets. Are you seeing that in Antioch? Are the fees too much? I mean, and I know it's different for developers and for individuals. Individuals trying to build these things, some say it's impossible. Developers may be easier.
Well, we just had our first recent subdivision include ADUs. It just went through design review. It was been entitled since the 90s, and they're just now building a phase. So their new models that they came forward with have ADUs, but they're options. So I can't tell you how many of those will end up as ADUs. It's completely up to the buyers. And, everyone who buys that particular floor plan availed themselves of an ADU option. We could have 25 to 30 more ADUs. But if only one buyer avails themselves of that option, we'll only get one out of it. So it's not a mandate, it's the developer who proposed it. So we'll see it'll be interesting to see what the market bears, because that'll be completely up to the home buyer to avail themselves of that option. So I'm interested to see what happens with that. These are decent-sized houses. They're 2,500 square feet. So you can have the option of having a junior ADU in this instance.
Maybe for the benefit of the new people, ADUs.
I'm sorry, accessory dwelling units?
Yeah, thanks.
I apologize, in-law units, granny units, what's ADU for short, that's the new terminology that the state has adopted. So that's our first subdivision recently that has proposed accessory dwelling units that can be built within the home. You can use it for rental income or just have a relative live there and have them have independent cooking facilities and independent entry and exit. But I don't know yet how many buyers will be interested. We've had subdivisions years ago that had ADU options as a part of them. I think that subdivision now might be 20 years old, and they had an ADU option, but it wasn't a trend or anything in these recent subdivisions. So we'll see.
But as far as it's not something that's being required or heavily encouraged by the city.
No, so none of this has been required. It's not. Most of the subdivisions that have moved forward in the past 5 years are 4,500 square foot lots. We've entitled maybe 2,500 units in the past 5 years. Most of them are 4,500 square foot lots. Some are senior, going to be sold to seniors. The houses themselves aren't very big. The lots aren't very big, so that detached granny unit model isn't very feasible on these types of lots, because the houses that the builders want to build are so big, they take up so much of the lot. So I can see a junior ADU being a more desirable option, but again, that's going to be up to the individual to pursue their own building permits and all that. So we're not yet mandating it. It helps us greatly with our RHNA. We do about 6 of them a year for just regular residents in the city. Not a huge number for a city of 115,000 people, but
That's actually, 6 units is great. I think I've seen like 2 or 3 from Clayton had 2 ADUs for their entire reporting period. We just had them here a while ago. What are your fees for individuals if a homeowner approached the city and wanted to do it?
well, I couldn't tell you because it's based on job valuation square footage, so I'm not sure. We have pass-through fees to ECRFA, which are the biggest chunk of the fees. Is if they're not exempt from ECRFA, a junior ADU would be, but a detached ADU has to pay the Regional Finance Authority, which is a very big fee. But our building permit fees are the smallest percentage of all the fees.
And that's kind of what I was wondering, is usually the building permit's less than 3% roughly.
Yeah.
Some of the cities we've seen $10,000, $20,000 other fees. Is that what you're at?
Yes, that's what we're confronting, is it's the water, the ECRFA, school districts, not that much. But yeah, our fees are the smallest piece of the pie of the cost to the homeowner. But I'm sorry, I can't tell you exactly what the numbers are because they do vary.
On those developments that did have the option of the ADUs, and the first owner didn't take advantage of that, could the subsequent owner be able to sparse that out fairly easily?
So the way these houses are set up, the ones that are the newer ones that have proposed it, yes, it would be fairly easy for them to do a couple maybe put up a wall and yeah. And they could qualify as a junior ADU. They can build out a kitchen if the original owner didn't take the option. We do require that people go through an administrative process with the city so we can record the ADU approval against the lot and that sort of thing. So they would have to go through that process.
I'm just curious. So that ADU would the property taxes be assessed separately for the ADU, or is it one property tax for the entire unit?
I honestly don't know. They're all on one lot, and they don't exist independently from each other, meaning you can't sell an ADU off. One of them has to be owner-occupied. Some of them are attached, some are detached from the home. So I honestly don't know how the assessor evaluates that.
It functions almost as a duplex.
Any other questions or comments? So, in keeping with tradition, we normally ask that the representative for the city make a motion to accept the checklist and move it forward. And so that would be absent. Hold on. Wait, there's more. We do have a representative from Brentwood and Oakley. So those are in the area. If anybody, Pittsburgh. So if there, I would like to say you could, but you won't. You won't. No, you can't. So I would entertain that one of your neighbor representatives make a motion or in second.
I move to accept.
Second.
So the representative from the from the city of Pittsburgh, and then Oakley, and then our newest member from the city of Brentwood. So we have a motion to accept the compliance checklist, and we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Those of you who are in favor of approving the checklist for the city of Antioch, the year 2016-2017, please note by saying aye.
Aye.
And those of you who are opposed, please note by saying nay. And any abstentions? So it carries. So what you will be meeting March 6th with the Authorities Planning Committee, and they probably will have questions for you too. You might want to look at a summary of the 2016-2017 activities. And then from there, you move to March 20th, the authority reviews it, and you'll be approved your allocation for the $1.3 million for the city of Antioch. That wasn't so bad, was it? We're nice people. So congratulations on your new posts. We'll see you in 2 years. Yeah. Thank you very much for coming tonight. We appreciate it. Safe drive home. Next on the agenda is the review of the town of Moraga, and I don't see the representative, so Matt's going to speak to that.
I am not representing the town of Moraga tonight. Moraga submitted its checklist earlier this month. We've been working very closely to make sure it's in order, and we think it is in order. However, their council does meet tonight, which created the conflict. They're a small town with only 2 planning staffers, and both of which were involved in the town council meeting tonight. So I apologize on behalf of them. This is the first time I've had a checklist presentation be vacated. So your options tonight are to approve the checklist based on what you've seen thus in the packet, and just so the new members know, what you see in the packet is not the full checklist. It's what we call an abridged version, with just kind of the highlights of the transportation and housing items. But there is both checklists in the packet tonight have about 150 pages in their full checklist, but we don't want to kill too many trees, so we just have that as a link on the website directly from the agenda if you want to see the full packet. But like I said, you can approve it based on what is in the agenda packet, or you can request that they attend the next meeting where they are available. Hopefully that would be March 27th. So those are your options, and I'll hand it back over to you.
Okay, thank you. So the representative of the town of Moraga and I and Matt spoke about this earlier this evening, and we would like to recommend that this be moved to the next meeting. We'd like to hear from the town of Moraga. We want them to make a presentation. So we want to throw that out to you guys on how you feel about that.
Well, if I might comment, Madam Chair, I think it's a good idea. I would like Moraga to come in here because we're directly related to Orinda and Lafayette, and I know the representatives from both of those cities would have some questions, as well as the entire group here. So my suggestion is to continue this until the next meeting, hopefully, and bring them in and have them discuss the issues with you.
Other comments?
Can we find out if there is a potential schedule conflict in 4 weeks?
Yeah, I think Matt was going to check on that, and
Yeah.
I'm also going to follow up on it.
Yeah, I've already put that date out there to them, and I'll be following up with them after tonight, as well as a member from Moraga.
So are you requiring a motion on our part to move this to the next? Yes, so I would like to, for perhaps the representative of the town of Moraga to make a motion. Okay, so the motion has been made by the representative of the town of Moraga to move the presentation to the next meeting, March 27th.
Second.
Do I hear, okay, I have a second from the town of Oakley. And do I have any further discussion? Okay, those of you in favor, please note by stating aye.
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 And those of you opposed, nay. And abstentions. So the motion carries. Thank you. I appreciate your consideration and your understanding. Next on the agenda, we have committee reports. So do we have a committee report from any of the members on the committee here? Typically what happens with committee reports is somebody will attend one of the other committee meetings and then come back and report on that. So we were very spoiled. I'm just saying. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying we were very spoiled by Stephen Smith from Brentwood, who used to attend the different committee meetings. So if anybody is interested, we would love for you to do that. And I would, actually, I would suggest you may want to speak with Matt about that, attending one of the meetings. And he just came back with a very short summary, half a page of that. Matt?
I just want to note that if anybody is interested in doing that, Mr. Smith did drive back and forth from Brentwood every time. It was all on his own volition, but our meetings are broadcast live via audio through the internet, and they are recorded. So if someone was interested, you could go about it that way. There's no real necessity to be here in the room.
Thank you. And next on the agenda are any correspondence or news clippings that anyone found interesting and wanted to share with the group? Matt?
I have some comments under item 4. Okay. So on the dais in front of you, there's a handout regarding the Redefining Mobility Summit. This is something we've been involved with. I think this is our fifth year. It's basically an event that we are co-sponsor of, along with Gomentum Station, who many of you got to see over the last month or two, our autonomous test bed out at the Concord Naval Weapons Station. So basically, people that are out there testing these autonomous vehicles and other technologies will all be in San Ramon on March 8th. That's why I grabbed a flyer. And it's at the Roundhouse, which is right in the middle of Bishop Ranch there, next to the new city center. I'm going to use it as an opportunity to check out the new city center. But there's speakers from, in addition to seeing the self-driving shuttle and things like that, there are speakers from around the world who are, kind of the experts in innovation and the new transportation technologies that are really kind of changing the way we get around and will be changing even more in the coming years. We're seeing it with the disruptive technologies, with the TNCs, the Ubers and Lyfts and folks like that, but you're really going to see a change when the autonomous vehicles and things going completely electric. You're going to see a real paradigm shift over the next several years. So this is a good place to see that technology live and hear from experts around the globe. The reason the flyer's in front of you is because there is a charge to get into this. For the general public, it's actually quite a bit of money. So it's $300 and something. So we've got a discount for our committee members. It's $50. There's a code on the flyer. I'm not going to say it out loud. Otherwise, anybody listening to me can just jot that code down. We want to make it special for our members. So if you have any questions about that, you can email. Fifi actually is on the organizing committee, so she can help you out. But you can talk to either of us about that. And we encourage you to attend if you're interested in that type of thing. Also, wanted to let you know that we have our congestion management program, our CMP monitoring coming up over the next coming months, is where we monitor intersections all around the county for their level of service. We do their vehicle level of service, plus we do bicycle and pedestrian counts. So if you happen to see folks at intersections, usually most of it's being done via cameras now, but we always get calls from people when they see folks either sitting there doing manual counts or mounting cameras on poles. So we just want to let you know that it not in all cases, but in the month of March and April, it's probably going to be our folks. They're firms that we've contracted with. So if you see any issues, feel free to contact me. I'm managing that project. But also if your neighbors wonder why there's a camera at the intersection down the street. These are signalized intersections at major arterials. That's probably what's going on. It's just counting, and we're not following you or anything like that. So we do get calls a lot, and people call the police, and then the police call us. So I thought by reaching out to you guys, you might be able to minimize that a little.
Have you considered posting to Nextdoor?
That might be a good idea as well. And I might encourage the cities to do that as well. Because they do get permits with the city, so the cities know they're out there. Most cities require an encroachment permit for those types of activities. And if you saw any out in the last week or two, those were all at the Caltrans intersection, so where ramps hit arterials. So we've got that done already, and we'll be doing the city ones next. Let's So next month, we will have a couple of checklists at least on the agenda. We've received draft checklists from Town of Danville and City of Lafayette. So we'll try and get those out to you early because we may have 3 along with Moraga. So we'll shoot those out to you so you'll have some time to review and don't have to look at 3 in 5 days or however long you have to look at the agenda. So it'll be kind of La Morinda month potentially. Or SWAT for sure. SWAT is our southwest area that covers all those jurisdictions. I did want to follow up on one of the questions someone posed to Antioch on any plans for kind of a bus connection remote lots. That was our new Clayton member. I know there are discussions with BART. They've talked about using like the mall, the Summersville Mall, as a remote lot, and I don't think they got anywhere with that. However, we are working with BART and the City of Brentwood to fund and construct what we're calling the Brentwood Intermodal Center. And basically it would be at Highway 4 and where we are going to be constructing the McCollumney Overcrossing, which is a bike and pedestrian path that was bisected by the construction of Highway 4. It was supposed to be constructed at that time, but was deferred. So we've now cobbled up enough funding to fund that overcrossing, and that is where BART would like to have where BART has envisioned a future BART station should eBART ever be extended. It's expensive, so we don't know whether that will happen, but BART is looking at that. We're looking at that. But in the meantime, what is feasible or more feasible is constructing a facility there where there would be a park and ride lot, and Tri-Delta would run buses directly to the Antioch station, and it would serve the city of Brentwood pretty well. And so it would kind of be an interim BART station until a BART station potentially happened. I'm not going to promise that because it's right now I think it's about a $300 million extension, but we are working on the transit center.
But the transit center sounds like a good, temporary use of it with a little bit more low-hanging fruit than the $300 million. Yeah,
exactly. So I wanted to mention that because it would be funded partially by CCTA funds, maybe not Measure J. The McCollumney Overcrossing is being funded by Measure J, but we're looking for funds for the Brentwood Intermodal Center, so we're looking to take advantage of the SB1 funds that you probably remember from the last election that was not overturned, so those funds will continue to flow. And also Regional Measure 3, the toll increase. Hopefully we'll have some funding for that, for the Intermodal Center. And one more thing I wanted to mention, since we are in checklist season, I will send out our checklist, what I call it a checklist primer, that we do at the beginning of checklist season. We did it, I think, last October or September, somewhere around there. I'll send that out to the new members. It's a PowerPoint that kind of describes what to look for in the checklist. And maybe I can send it to the whole group because I'm not sure if everybody saw that last presentation. It basically just goes through the 12 items in the checklist and tells you what we're looking for and what you should be looking for. So I'll send that out. I think that's about it. And in terms of items for presentation, during checklist season, we have fewer kind of general interest presentations or transportation-focused presentations. But we're always looking for items, and that's item 6 on our agenda. We kind of put it out there. Is there any topics that you're interested in that we could get a presenter here on? We've heard from Mr. Dupre on some economic issues, and I'm going to try and get someone from ABAG to talk about ADUs, so you're all intimately familiar with the ins and outs of ADUs and the difference between a junior ADU and a full ADU, and kind of what how ABAG, the kind of the regional government body that deals with housing, how they're looking at ADUs and promoting them and so forth.
So I retired from the lab, so I got to see all kinds of way cool stuff that still isn't out here yet. But I would like to see the Transportation Authority reach out somehow to interface with and make some regular connection with the folks at our national labs and the universities that are doing research for autonomous vehicles and artificial intelligence. And in making that connection, make it easier to bring that stuff to market.
Thanks. Great. Yeah, we do work with Berkeley BTS, their transportation system, a lot, but yeah, I don't know where we are on the AI front yet.
Well, I had the opportunity to work with a scientist who was actually working on the algorithms and the systems to enable artificial intelligence to actually make decisions on its own. And they were in the process of getting DOE funding as of last year, and getting collaboration between all the national laboratories and so forth. So it's kind of exciting and on the infant level, but it's coming. And I've been to some of these seminars that the lab has in trying to get that technology out to the public, because you got all this great innovation and it's difficult to get it out to the market, to the open market. They're talking about battery technologies all the time, and it's difficult to move forward with a new battery technology that I see it there, but I'm not seeing it out here yet. And they have the capability for 500-mile range batteries, ceramic lithium batteries that pose no fire threat and don't wear out. So it's all there. We'd like to see it out here.
And the authority is working on an electric vehicle readiness plan for the county, so we'll bring that to you guys. We're going to be wrapping that up late spring, early summer, so we'll bring that to you as well and let you see what we're doing there.
You guys got to see I'm sorry, I love technology, and I'm looking at the clock, but you got to see what did they call that charging that
inductive or the?
Well, we called it inductive. They called it something else.
The one where you pull up to the
the
curb.
I want one of those in my garage.
Oh yeah, the company. I think the company is Elix.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff out there.
A little lossy.
I have a question for you, Matt. I don't know, in recent weeks or months, I've noticed that there is a significant dip in our new highway, Highway 4, between, it's very, very close to the Loveridge exit. It transects lanes 2, 3, 4, and it's a disaster waiting to happen. As soon as somebody hits that doing 100 miles an hour, and that is happening out there all the time.
What direction was that?
Near Loveridge exit.
Is it westbound or
westbound?
Westbound. Okay.
Yeah.
I will.
I think lane 2 is the worst, but boy, if somebody were to hit that at high speed, they could easily go airborne, and it could really be a disaster.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there are any plans to fix it, but it's been there for quite some time now.
Okay, yeah, I'll check with our construction manager. We've turned the project over to Caltrans, but for maintenance, but he can run it up the flagpole.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. By the way, I worked at Lawrence Livermore for 14 years and 5 years at Los Alamos before that and a year at Pantex before that, so familiar with the complex. There you are. There you are. Madam, you'd asked if there were any articles or something of interest. I thought, even though we're in the business of making sure that the transportation infrastructure that we have is as efficient and economical and as possible, there was an article on January 30th in the Mercury News. It was an opinion article with the title, Stop Deepening Bay Area Transportation, Housing Crisis. It was written by Daniel Borenstein. I can provide a link later. So you're familiar with this one. Anyway, so this sort of flips the problem on its head. And not to belabor, it was a well-written article. It was pretty well organized, but it could be summarized very briefly. And it rightly recognizes that jobs are concentrated in the cities of San Francisco and San Jose, and then housing is concentrated elsewhere. And the job centers continue to be built up there, and the housing continues to be built out here. So it kind of almost takes what would look like the state plans of forcing all of the affordable housing out in communities like Antioch or whatnot, like we just heard, and almost wants to put a moratorium on that and a moratorium on the building of additional commercial centers inside of the, you can't add jobs in San Francisco unless you also add equivalent housing, and vice versa in the East Bay and surrounding areas.
So that's one of the major problems out in the Far East Bay.
More houses than jobs.
And Brentwood is actually trying to address that by bringing in some high-tech manufacturing.
Right.
And the only way you're going to be able to keep 2/3 of your population or more from leaving every morning and going to the Bay Area is to bring those jobs out to the Far East Bay.
Absolutely.
So Borenstein is right, but
it's very difficult to think about how to incentivize that. Obviously, as I was discussing this with my children at home, I said, there are companies that build in Silicon Valley and San Francisco, and they do so for a reason. There's a reason that they don't want to
that's
build
because
out
they're close to their source.
True, and
like at the labs.
Right.
So when the incubator companies start up, they go to Berkeley or Livermore. And
Right.
they start from there because that's where their source of information and technology comes from.
Right.
Then after that, if they've got to move out farther away,
They can do
places like Oakley, Antioch, or whatever have to provide
some sort of infrastructure.
incentives
Right.
to build out there. That means property.
Right.
And for places like Oakley, we're in a cul-de-sac.
Right.
So we can't do a damn thing with retail.
Right.
And the only way we can do something is to change our whole way of thinking and bring in high-tech manufacturing, and that's one of the issues.
Yeah.
That's why I asked that question about the desalinization plant. That's
How many we're
important.
bringing? Yeah. Well, every job that's on that side is potentially someone who's not driving on Highway 4
And
and
tearing
then
it up.
680 and 24. And so that is, although I did join this council to make sure that we have an effective, efficient transportation system, ultimately I do believe that the greatest amounts of our problems are going to be solved on this other side of figuring out the question of how to put a shiny enough carrot in front of companies to make them build in a Stockton, a Brentwood, or whatever. That's actually going to make the area sustainable. But anyway.
So I have not read that article. If you wouldn't mind bringing that to the next meeting, I think Fifi would make copies.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Okay. I'll
Yeah.
send her an email so it can be included in the next
Perfect.
agenda.
Yeah.
It's a well-written article.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you guys were.
We know him.
He's a known quantity. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments about your local city? For the city of Lafayette, Don Tatson has retired from public life. He served as a commissioner and eventually many different years as mayor of the city of Lafayette. 30 years. So he has now, he will be enjoying his retirement dinner. It escapes me when it's planned for. He and his wife and probably the entire city of Lafayette, people know him from everywhere. So he has served on the Transportation Authority. Okay. We talked about future agenda items, and so this meeting is adjourned until March 27th. Thank you.